hey ya yo, 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 hawe ya, hawa ya ne, ho ya ne, hawe ya, hawa ya ne, ho ya ne, we. Ganewa hoyane, Yahoo ganewa hoyane, Yahoo ganewa hoyane, Yahoo ganewa hoyane, we ha, he anu hawe. No ya hey hey no hey ya, 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 no ya hey hey no hey ya. No ya hey we ha we ya na we ya na we ya na we ya na oh ya ne we ya na we ya na we ya na oh ya ne we ha yo ho he ho 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 e do ga ho ne ho yo
Oyo Elisanoyo Sta Oganale Nagita. This is Mashu White Feather, and we're broadcasting tonight our show from New York City. Doreen is here with me. Kia ora, Doreen.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Mashu. Kia ora koutou katoa. Hello to everyone listening tonight.
We are here in New York attending the Indigenous Peoples Permanent Forum at the United Nations, which is addressing indigenous rights and issues. And today was our first day. Before we get on further telling of our trip here, I'd like to announce that the lead-in song was Rebuilding the Fire by Bo Taylor, Eastern Band Cherokee. And I would like to give you the call-in number before we start in case anyone would like to call in. That's area code 718-506-1564. Again, that's area code 718-506-1564. And behind the scenes, we have Chimney Bennett, Western Band Cherokee from Oklahoma. We have Sheila Folger and in the background helping us, and then my cousin Two Dogs from Kentucky is on in the background as well. Our guest tonight hasn't shown up yet. We have a lot of activity here in New York, which she is of the TAINO people of Puerto Rico and lives now in Florida. Her name is TAINO Pelli. And so we're just going to talk about what we're doing until she shows up. Doreen, you were here a week before I was. What have you been up to?
I arrived in New York on the 5th of May. the day before I started training for Project Access, which is part of the Tribal Foundation here at the United Nations. It's part of the United Nations. It prepares Indigenous people who are here for the first time, prepares us for the whole machine of the United Nations, because it's such a big place. And they have so many different events, workshops, training. They have a lot happening here, and it's full on. Our days start about 7:30. 8 o'clock we're on the road. We go right through to probably about 6 o'clock. We normally have evening meetings as well. So it's just been quite fun, a bit tiring. And Project Access was a 3-day intensive training. The 2 days after that, the Saturday and Sunday, just gone, was the Global Indigenous Peoples Caucus. Now that's people from all around the world attend that, and that's to prepare a statement for to present at the United Nations at the Permanent Forum. And that was a good experience. I co-chaired that meeting. And we must have had in the room, we had the 5 regions, which is Asia, Africa, Pacific, Latin America and the Caribbean, and North America.
And Europe.
And Europe. Sorry, yeah, in Europe.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Well, I managed to get one day shopping and have a look around because I have to take home something.
And I arrived last night, was flying all day, and got in last night, came to the hotel, we went out to eat, and then got up early this morning and went to and had to get registered in. We have our UN identification cards now, and we have to go through security every time. And they said, can you take off your belt? And I said, if I take off my belt, everything from the waist down moves. So there was this one gentleman there. He said, "Oh, come on in." He said, "I'll give you a pat down." And I told him, I said, "You cannot be off work anymore for 2 weeks now because I need you here for when I come through the thing, because traditionally I have so much silver jewelry and stuff that's on." And so we had a good laugh about that. And I have met so many wonderful people from all over the world. And one thing that I thought was really cute this evening, this man came up to me and he's from Siberia. He said, "Hey, Russian, Siberia," and I said, "Me, Ani Gaduwa," and he looked at me kind of crazy, and I went, "Oh, in English, Cherokee," and he just practically yelled, "Cherokee!" and he gave me a big hug. I guess they've heard of Cherokee, and he's the president of some major Siberian Indigenous Association or group in Siberia. Some of the things that some of the people that I've talked to anyway, have a lot of the same interests that we have, and I've been telling them about our business adventure and decolonization programs, and they're very much interested. I have so many business cards from so many people just in one day. This is the first day for me. So it looks like we're going to be doing really good here and making a lot of excellent contacts from all over the world.
Because I think you had the president of Siberia. But I also met this morning the president of Papua New Guinea.
What?
In exile, though. He's in exile.
Uh-huh.
But I was talking to him this morning as well. They're just really interested in our nation, or our vision, I guess it is,
Mm-hmm.
of tribes helping tribes. Because it's simple, it's not a hard thing to do, but I think people are looking for people to step forward so that their countries, their Indigenous in their countries, have got the link to make it work for them. So that's been exciting. But just on the UN itself, the program for the next 2 weeks is around the principles of good governance. So that's quite broad, but it's right down to helping our Indigenous NGOs, non-government organisations, to establish themselves well when they set up, whether it's health, education, social services. And the push they're doing there is so the states, all the governments, support the Indigenous people that they can get good infrastructure in place for their services they deliver to their people. The other key areas they're looking at are women, children, so is it
handicap,
disabilities,
mm-hmm.
and sexual health for women. And water. Water is a huge one that they're discussing this year. So they've got several workshops throughout the next 2 weeks discussing water and how we can restore our water to what it was and stop the energy companies.
I was going to say, I have one good idea that I'll take care of the water, and that's stop all the fracking and the tar sands. Real interesting bunch. I was in traditional regalia all day today. And a lot of people were, and it was just absolutely wonderful to see all the people come in and talk. And they had, when we were in our meetings, they had translators that would come over like a headphone. And then if you had something to say in that same setup, they had a microphone that you can talk in. It's like sitting in where the United Nations really meets. And Doreen's in the process of posting pictures of what we've done today, and mock pictures of us up at the UN Simple talking and things like that, so that we would look important. so it's just been really, really great thus far. So many interesting people, and like we have to go downstairs in our hotel in order for us to have tobacco, and so we cannot say anymore, well, we'll be right back, because every time we go down, we get stopped. So,
if you excuse me, I'm just going to shoot out for a minute, because the hotel is just full of everyone that's going to the UN, and just go and talk to a couple of the women from South Africa so that they have an opportunity to talk on the radio. There was so much to choose from. We ended up with nothing at the moment.
If you can find TAINO.
Yeah.
Do any of you guys on the panel with me here have any questions about anything?
I was looking at the pictures that Carl was posting there.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you know what I found, and they're all teasing me about it. Doreen says, "Mashu, you must have some sort of regal air about you." And I go, "What do you mean a regal?" And she said, "A lot of the people, when they find out I'm Cherokee, they literally like bow to me." And I'm not used to that, you know. I go, "Oh, don't do that, you know. We're the same. We're Indigenous people."
Mm-hmm. We are.
Yeah. It's just a really experience.
So this is your first time in New York?
My very first time. I have traveled around the world. I lecture internationally, but it's my very first time to New York. And it's huge.
Is it?
It's absolutely monstrous. I mean, skyscrapers. One of the ladies described it as a canyon of skyscrapers with a yellow cab going through the canyon. And there's lots of taxi cabs. I've never seen taxi cabs here.
So it looks like from
Go ahead.
that's what it looks like from the pictures that Carl's been posting, that there's a lot of taxi cabs out.
Yeah, more so than other cars, you know. But it's a big city. It's a huge city. It's a new experience for me, and I'm loving it. And the people will stop us on the street and start really friendly. I haven't had any good experience so far. I have not exactly. We don't have to be to the UN until 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, really?
So we can sleep in. So, but they have a lot of programs. They have meetings that we have to attend. We have to sign in, and it's really good. It's really good. And just talk to some of the people. Didn't know, for example, that there was actually indigenous tribes. And, you know, it's, I guess, I'm just ignorant about it. And it's so interesting. Those people, there are people from Norway and Finland and Sweden. And these are mountain people.
No, cool.
I can't remember. There's groups of them, but they have pretty much the same indigenous attire. And, they looked almost like ours, and I found out that there are indigenous people there, and so my education has just increased just in one day being here, and I am proud to announce that our guest has arrived, and this is This is Ty, and she is TAINO, originally from Puerto Rico.
What again? The name?
And then currently living in Florida. And welcome to our show.
Thank you so much.
As a matter of fact, because of you, I called a friend of mine that I knew in New York, Luis, you know, so that he would call in or listen. Hola, Felix. And welcome to our show. Please tell us all about you, because they're tired of hearing me.
I'm not so sure about that. Good evening, listeners and participants. My name is Ty Pelli, and I represent the United Confederation of TAINO People. We are an intertribal Caribbean organization, not just composed of TAINO people, but also of Kalinago and Lokono. All Arawa people. We're the Arawa.
Great. Oh, that I would say good.
So one of the things that I'm doing here, obviously, there's a great interest in working towards indigenous rights. I am dedicated to informing our people about the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, mentoring others so that they can teach the mass, and also the importance of the free, prior, and informed consent, which we know that it's not only affecting Caribbean indigenous people, but indigenous peoples throughout the world. And in our case, since most people are taught a version of history where we're not supposed to be here, obviously, to me, to teach about the right, the international, inherent, fundamental, basic human right of self-determination is key. We are here, we are TAINO, and we're here to stay.
And you are here on our show, which is entitled Indigenous Peoples Voice, and you can talk about anything. You can get as militant as you want. This is what our show is all about, so our indigenous people have a voice. So please don't hold back.
One of the I
can say that we have had TAINO representation at the United Nations, at the international level, from even before the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues was created. The first TAINO was Brother Jose Barreiro, and in the late 70s he was already participating at the international arena. In 1992, we had the first woman, one of our BBs, which is like a grandmother, Naniki Reyes Ocasio. And since then, many of us have devoted their time, particularly our chief, Cacique Roberto Mucaro Borrero, and he has been fundamental to our visibility at the international arena. It is key that we all understand the importance of knowing what your rights are. And one of the things that we as Caribbean indigenous peoples have endured is the fact that colonization started with us. And to this day, we see the tentacles of the doctrine of discovery, assimilation, the discrimination that you have with indigenous peoples, particularly, like I said, in the Caribbean, where it is hammered left and right that TAINO are extinct. We had something very interesting because for the longest time our people were saying, but we're here. And, you know, and people were sharing their oral history. Interestingly, even though oral history is something very valued throughout the world, academia was pretty much forcing this mentality that those were old people's stories.
Yeah.
You know? It was coming just from old people, as if it had no value. We need something more concrete. We need something more scientific.
Right.
When we all know, as indigenous peoples, that our customs and traditions have never been based on that type of science. You know, that is not how we determine who we are. First of all, besides the fact of whatever you may look like on the outside, what really counts is your spirit. And it's that spirit has always prevailed, regardless of what the books are teaching. So we go back to this oral history that was not being accepted. And at the beginning of the year 2000, they find these remains, ancestral remains, not enough to put us under a glass box, which we all know that we don't have the bones of George Washington in the U.S. for people to go and see his bones under a glass box. We don't see that with any relative of any president. However, you go to a museum and there you can see the remains of indigenous people. We are totally against that. I think that, you know, this mentality of if somebody destroys a grave from anybody else, you know, it's seen as something really huge, but when it happens to an interment of indigenous people, then obviously that seems to be acceptable somehow. Well, that happened in the town of Montecito when they found, or the northern part of the island that you will know as Puerto Rico. The original name, the TAINO name, is Boriquén. And this professor of biology, the scientist, had an interest of seeing the migrating waves in the Caribbean and South America. So he was just interested in studying that. And it ends up happening is that he receives these remains, starts working on mitochondrial DNA to see, you know, identify where did these people come from. Interestingly, then the next step is to go and see, well, let me look for people that have the TAINO phenotype, you know, and see and check a comparison. Now, with mitochondrial DNA, which is a DNA that does not mix with anything. It passes intact from woman to woman. For example, my sons will not be able to pass it forward. They received it from me. They will not be able to pass it forward. And I'm only speaking about the side of the mother. Right. But yet my daughter will be able to pass it to her children. My grandson right now will not be able to pass it, but yet my granddaughter will pass it on to generations. That is what the mitochondrial DNA does. So obviously Dr. Martinez Cruzado really thought, well, it's been so long since the Taino were all exterminated that the number of mitochondrial DNA, or the percentage of mitochondrial DNA that I find may be very slim, you know. Well, that was not the case. He had decided to go to the one place that history books told we had the most Taino do that. And so the percentage that comes out of those tests are so high that it doesn't make any sense. How could they have been exterminated and all of a sudden we still have this high percentage? So he decides to get more samples, and to make a long story short, at the end they end up taking 800 samples from people not only that had the phenotype, but also the white ones that had the blonde hair and the blue eyes. And the average Boricua or Puerto Rican has over 61% indigenous DNA. That is, so now we gave them the science. So of course, that created a little bit of conflict there, and academia has tried to minimize that, saying, well, that's only mitochondrial DNA. How about the other DNA? You know, we do the admixture, and that's 15 to 18%. So they're playing with the numbers, and at this time, as more and more of us understand what our rights are, as more and more of us understand that we have the right of self-determination, which is no favor in our case from the U.S., as academia has tried to say.
Right.
One of the things that we had spread, you know, some of it spread, was the fact that, well, the U.S. will let people call themselves whatever they want to. But, you know, that is misinformation, because the reality is that the right of self-determination, it is from international law, and it's an inherent, fundamental, basic human right. So the more people learn, this is not just applicable to Taino people, this is applicable to all indigenous peoples of the world. And the more you know, the more you understand your rights, the better it will be for all indigenous peoples.
Are you referring to the United Nations Indigenous Bill of Rights?
Well,
is that a part of what you're talking about?
This is you know, the convention, the human rights, talk about the right of self-determination. It is international law. Okay, so whether you have something local and they tell you you're not, whether you have something national and they say we don't have any indigenous peoples, only you have to really say, this is who I am. And that has to be respected, which has not been the case. But you need to understand that is there, that is yours, and you need to be able to stand firm.
So with your people, a group of people, do you have equivalent to what we have here on Turtle Island, the North American continent, with the blood quantum and all that? Did they try that with your people?
They like I said, with the admixture, for example, as I said, when they did those DNA studies, you know, and here, the admixture is pretty much that. It has the word mixture in it, whereas the mitochondrial DNA, it is just like bling.
Yeah.
It doesn't mix with anything. You know, they'll say the elements of the European, it'll have the percentage of those that have black in their blood. That is not what we use to define ourselves. One of our Taino brothers, Kutuwanama Velasquez, one time was questioned on his being Taino. He happens to be fair-skinned. And somebody said, well, how could you claim to be Taino when you look so white to me? And he happened to have a Chevy nearby. And he pointed to the Chevy.com. And they said, is that a Chevy? The person says, of course it is. You know, is that an American car? Yes, it is. Well, we all know that it has Japanese parts. Is it still an American car? And obviously people know that the Chevy is built as an American car.
Right.
So, you know, it's pretty much that same way. You need to understand where you connect, where your spirit is, and where your heart is before you look at the outside. Blood, in my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for organizations or anybody else. This is strictly by pelli, has been designed to eliminate us from the books. And just the way they decided to take us out of their books, we must put ourselves back in.
You are exactly right. It was started around the time of the enrollment on the reservations. They started this to divide and conquer our people. And they thought with this blood quantum, after so long of time, there wouldn't be left, so that they would have right to all of our land. Well, we've turned into the pest that just won't go away. So now they've started, like up in Canada, that just did paper genocide. They just said,
exactly.
No more Indigenous people, so we're taking away their treaty lands, their treaty rights, water rights, mineral rights and stuff like that. And the thing that really bugged me about that whole process, just from watching it up in Canada, was that how can something in today's world like that happen, and the rest of the world doesn't do a damn thing about it?
Well, I have an answer for that, Mashu.
Well, I have this battle that goes on with me all the time. I know it's called corporations. There are six corporations that own every American or every government in the world, and it's all boiled down to that. But thinking indigenous, I don't understand how other human beings can see a group of people being treated like that, where all their rights are taken away, and everybody just stands around and looks and goes, does nothing and just goes, oh well, or something like that. As a human being, I don't understand that.
Well, on this side of the world, for example, and I will speak from a Caribbean indigenous person point of view. We have 522 years of colonization.
Mm-hmm.
So the mentality there, it's pretty much clear. It's what were people in Europe doing when all these atrocities, 100 million people, indigenous peoples, massacred? What were they doing? They were going about their coffee or their tea and using an umbrella if they happened to live in Great Britain, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
So, it's the same thing. The rest of the community, the civil society, is not reacting to this. Although I have to say, thanks to the media now, mechanisms like the one we're using right now, indigenous peoples, and we have this conversation.
I know. I'm talking to you, and it's like I'm talking to myself because we think so much alike. I know. I'm looking at a mirror image of myself. If it wasn't for this social media, people in this world today wouldn't know, because mass media does not put it out there. They don't want the world to know what's happening yet to our indigenous people.
And there are many, many things that still, when it comes to human rights, there's so many things that we're not aware of. It has to be when we come to platforms such as the one that we're attending for the next couple of weeks, that we get to see the atrocities that indigenous peoples are truly living, and it's devastating. Your heart breaks when you see some of these images. When you see that pesticides, for example, and I will go into something that it's happening, and it's a form of genocide in my view. Right now, I think that many of us, because this is collective. Now,
yes.
Those beyond indigenous people, we're suffering from this environmental violence, and it's not just even an example. One of the many, the pesticides. The United States has a number of pesticides that have been banned because they're highly toxic to human life.
Exactly.
Yet they continue to be manufactured and sent to other countries, such as Central, South America, and Africa. Isn't that interesting? Where do you have the biggest mass of indigenous people, right? Precisely in those countries. And when you see that in Mexico, for example, they're spraying these pesticides that are banned in the United States onto indigenous communities, and jelly babies are being born. This boy, Juan Antonio, from the Yaqui community, the child was born with cirrhosis of the liver.
Mm-hmm.
Within a few years, the quality of his life was just, imagine this is a community that is not wealthy, that is struggling to survive,
right,
and the means are not there. And see this child's health deteriorate in that fashion, and then to see him become a statistic. There are many, many things. We have the with our children in our island, for example. And when I talk about our island, you look at the fact that our island is 100 by 35 miles, smaller than that right now. Our entire land was taken over by the invaders. So to me, every speck of dust on that island, is TAINO.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting, during the 1980s, a bunch of reports coming out from doctors onto the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, and they're saying there's a high number of girls with TLARC. And TLARC is an abnormal growth of the breast. Imagine your 2-month-old baby with breast. And girls from 2 months old to 8 years old were having this problem. Right now, Boriken has the highest reported cases, number of cases reported in the world. This little island that is 100 times 35. And now the studies that were conducted, we don't have enough evidence, and we've all heard this about every single aspect. But it might have been the hormones that were used in the cattle and in the chickens. Recently, other reports are saying, this has to do with pesticides. Now, what happens is this is not just, she grew them early, she grew breast early, and she'll be fine. It just happened to be that it was a little bit too early. This is not normal breast tissue. And then you have to wonder, what is the connection between that and the high incidence of cancer in our women? So, that is just one example of the many. And these are things that are happening in our communities as we speak.
What's bringing to my mind right now is a picture that I actually saw on Facebook with the GMO, where they're spraying all of the fields with this herbicide, and the people that are doing it are wearing hazard suits. And then underneath it, this is what's sold on your shelves and your produce counters, on the corn, the vegetables, and everything else. And then shortly after that, I think it's 37 countries in the world have banned Monsanto and the use of herbicides, or pesticides, I should say, with plants and any type of produce. And the United States is one of the ones that has not banned it, but there are several states within our country that have stopped the use of that.
I have to, on your show, I must celebrate Minnesota.
Thank you. No more Columbus Day.
You're talking to me, and my mind is just flowing with all these things, and I want to give you information on what these companies that manufacture GMOs do. But all of a sudden, as we speak, I was like, I have to take this opportunity. I need to congratulate every single person in Minnesota for that. But let's go on GMOs.
Okay.
Because it impacts my island, and last year I reported here at the United Nations precisely on the effects of GMOs in my island. Right now we have, unfortunately, 8 multinationals. These companies that manufacture GMOs in my island, the island of Puerto Rico. And interestingly, what they're doing there is experimenting. They're using my island as a map. What the consequences, anything that goes into the soil will impact the water, what's happening to the air, what's happening to the elements of the pollen or whatever happens when there's a breeze, and we have a lot of breeze in the Caribbean, which will take it to other places. The birds, and it's domino effect, and people don't realize it. But the problem that we have is these companies take advantage of the fact that you have the need for work. And they come with the words economic development. And here you have a man or a woman that is the head of household, and they need a job. And they say, we have a job for you. And, of course, they're not looking at the ramifications of what this will entail. The only thing that I can tell you is that no money that they earn will ever be sufficient to cover all the medical expenses if they are able to get the services that they will need eventually. But these are experimentations. We had Agent Orange, which was experimented in our island. Most people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Birth control pills. Our women were used as guinea pigs. If you want benefits, during a time where there was a lot of hunger in the island, if you want to eat, you need to have this done. We had the highest number of sterilization. We had women tested with the high-level estrogen contraceptives. And most of these women didn't even know what they were taking. They just knew that if I take this, they are going to give me the food that I need to feed my family. So that has not stopped. When we have somebody that says, well, why are you guys talking about these things? That happened 522 years ago. Get over it. No, that is still going on.
Yes.
Columbus came here initially on the first trip with 3 ships. The form of the ships now is multinationals. You have big corporations invading people's lands. Governments are displacing indigenous peoples to accommodate development. These multinationals, they're taking over the water, they're taking over the land. We have deforestation to degrees that are just uncanny, and the number of issues will impact not just indigenous people. It will impact every single form of life in the planet.
And I don't understand why people don't understand that. I mean, folks, for the listening audience, what you are hearing is telepathy going on between me and Ty with verbiage. I mean, it's like I'm hearing myself talk, and I've said exactly the same thing. It's happening with the pesticides. It's happening with the herbicides. But on top of that, it's with the tar sands and the fracking. That's all waste that's going into the water. It's killing the water. It's killing the fish. Things have blood coming out of their gills. The wildlife comes in. They drink the water. They're finding dead wildlife, deer, rabbits, huge sores, like cancerous sores, all over them, and they're dead. It's killing the vegetation. It's just exactly like you said.
Every life form.
Every life form. And if it's doing that to everything else on the planet, we're included. And when we started with this I Don't Know More movement, everybody said, well, that's just those Native people fighting for indigenous rights and things again. But this is a spiritual movement, number one. And yes, in the beginning it was for our indigenous rights, but it's grown to include all of humanity.
Exactly.
Because once the earth is destroyed, there's nowhere else to go. So what we're doing is to save, as indigenous people, as I think your TAINO people had prophecies of what's happening today too. I know our people do. Most tribes do. A lot of people misinterpreted those and say, "Oh, the end of the world is coming."
Yeah.
But with our people, it just says there's a change.
Exactly.
And we are the change. The indigenous people are the change. We are the ones that are bringing the earth back.
I will share a story that I not so many people know about this, although it was out there and it's available and you can check it. The sturgeon, this fish that, it was the livelihood of several communities.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the sturgeon are not reproducing. and they bring all kinds of scientists. Oops, still doesn't happen. They get more scientists from other parts of the world to see if they can make the sturgeon reproduce. Still not happening. Somebody all of a sudden, and understanding that could have had like devastating consequences, had this idea of bringing the indigenous peoples to see if they could help. Well, needless to say, the sturgeon are reproducing now, and the caretakers of that project happen to be indigenous people. So, that happened with that fish.
Yes.
And you will hear over and over indigenous peoples, the Kogi, consider themselves the caretakers of the world. They have the message, for, big brother giving the message to little brother. And when we look at the indigenous wisdom, we will always...
OCO, my relatives, it looks like they've dropped out for a second again. Hopefully we'll get them back here in just a second. So please be patient. Two Dogs, are you here with me?
Yes, I am.
How you doing tonight, brother?
Ostada, I'm listening to this, and it is almost a split and identical thing to what's happened on Turtle Island and still happening there.
Yeah, it's the same story. It seems to be happening all over, isn't it?
It's always, what they considered as the weak, but we never were weak.
No, we weren't.
Indigenous people never were around the world. And, I know this is Mashu and Doreen's show, and, the thing about it is, with indigenous people coming from all over the world to be able to talk to each other, and that my cuz, Mashu and Doreen are involved in that, it's an honor to get to hear this lady.
It is an honor, a real good honor. Great honor. I'm just glad we got her on here tonight to be able to listen to her. And it's to hear from our TAINO brothers and sisters over there.
Definitely. And if you think, brothers and sisters, that this can't happen to you, well, hang on. Because it's here now.
Yes, it is.
I know it's kind of hard in New York to keep everything going, but, send me, see what you can do, get them back here, and keep this thing rolling, because it's important.
Yes, I'm doing everything I can to get them back here. Keep coming up busy for some reason, but we keep trying. We'll get them back here.
Are we back?
Hello.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Welcome back.
New York Internet is the worst. We just got taken completely off the air here. And Ty has the most interesting stories of we're talking about the sturgeon and how the native people have gotten it to come back to sturgeon and all of that. We every tribe that I know of refer to our people as the caretakers of the earth, and it's our tradition. And I can't say exactly for every tribe, but for most tribes, it's our belief that we leave the earth in better condition than when we came in, for at least 7 generations ahead. And if we don't look at it, that this is our responsibility, this is what the ancestors left us, we say we are borrowing it from our children, and that this is for their generations, whereas most of the other societies that are around us, they don't think of that. They don't think about their future descendants and what kind of life are they leaving for them. Only thing they do in today's world, they want their self-gratification right now. They want their life to be wonderful, and they don't think they're, and I'm talking about especially corporations, they don't care that they're destroying yours as long as their life is comfortable. The one good thing that I've seen out of the I Don't Know More movement is that we're getting a lot of non-Indigenous support because it's waking up other peoples besides Indigenous peoples. But again, our Indigenous people, and I'm talking about our tribal people, have been in the forefront. And our only weapons with this spiritual movement on Turtle Island is our drums, our songs, and our dance. And that's like our traditional spirit that is doing this. And even though that's the only weapons that we're using, and the dance is a round dance, it's a welcoming dance, inviting other people to come in and help. But like even here in the States now, as it is in Canada, if you're doing that, you can be arrested and charged with terrorism. And you mean, to me, a terrorist has to have a weapon. Call me sick up here, but but I think it's my mind, the reason that, especially in this country, and this is the only one I can talk about, or I'll even include Canada. Traditionally, I think the government are still afraid of us. They're afraid of our medicine, our spiritual, our traditional medicine. And I think that's why they're still doing that, like trying to do the paper genocide.
I think that is the core. But let me go and take it a little bit further.
Sure.
522 years ago, two cultures met. One thought that the other one had the same set of values as they did. This is 522 years later. Not only do we know about the medicine, not only do we connect with our spirituality, now we know the rules of the game.
And we're playing it. And we're playing it very good. I'm sure Doreen's the same way. But it's one of the good things about this. I want to tell the listeners is that we're all Indigenous. We're all coming together with this forum, with this Indigenous Peoples Permanent Forum. But it is so good, like what you're witnessing right now. We have 3 tribal people from different parts of the world, and we're talking, and we're putting another light on our same beliefs. And it's like, this is how we learn from each other. And we're not changing each other's cultures.
Exactly.
We're not stealing from each other. We're clarifying. And this is one thing that Doreen and I have talked about a lot, is that sometimes we need to look at another Indigenous culture, and it makes it click.
Listening to ourselves through the voice of another Indigenous person.
Right, exactly.
And it works. We do listen and we do take note. And often there's all these exchanges that happen, and we do adopt some of them to make it work for us.
I think that when we are at platforms like this one, when we use mechanisms as social media, internet, and everything that's available now that we did not have, I mean, really, right now, I would have never, if it wasn't for this, been able to meet you, and have our listeners there as we're having this conversation. That to me is key, because in reality it has to start at home. I'm not so hard about what's happening to Peter and Joe at their home. It reminds me of the Maslow pyramid. If I keep people looking for their basic needs, if I keep you preoccupied with what you're going to feed your family and how you're going to keep a roof over your head, believe me, you're not going to look for anything social and how to help the rest of the world, because you need to make sure that you feed your family and keep that roof over your head. So as long as, and that has been the strategy in my personal opinion, and I have many opinions.
and they're all personal.
No apology.
Ingenuity, I'm good.
And that is the thing. I know how I used to feel when my children were growing up, And I needed to make sure that I got them ready for school, and then I went to my job and did everything that I had to do there, worked the extra hours because you needed to do the extra hours even if you were not getting the pay to be able to hold those jobs.
Right.
And you're just rushing and rushing and rushing. How many parents have not found themselves, doing the homework at 10:30 at night when the child is just falling asleep on you? So it is that rush that keeps people on that track. And as long as this is the strategy. As long as I keep people on that track, they are going to be unaware of everything that I do on this other highway. And that's where you get the highway of the multinationals and the corporate interests, and they do as many things as we know are happening with our environment and with our resources, impacting initially indigenous people, but it really trickles down to everyone, all humanity, and again, as I said before, all life forms.
Exactly. We are waking up, but I don't think we're waking up fast enough. I get that feeling all the time. What I would like to see is more forums like what we're doing now, where we are having all of the indigenous peoples together. I really think, aside from what we're doing now, I think our battlefield on every level is in the courtroom, because there's no way that we as indigenous people, even if we all band together and fought for one cause, we're still outnumbered. So we've got, at least in this country, we have like for our treaties. We can take it there to the courtroom because all of our treaties here, and there's over 500 treaties with the various tribes of Turtle Island, were all treaties of benefit, never treaties of conquest. So the Supreme Courts and the federal courts are obligated to uphold them. But what we need is more indigenous lawyers that specialize in nothing but indigenous law. And I see that as one of the key things in helping our people at all levels, especially starting with the treaties and stuff like that. Now, will we get those treaties fully recognized or get the benefits that they promise? No, but we can. I don't want to say make concessions, because I'm not the person that wants to give any more concessions.
Right.
We can. I'm serious. We can somehow come to an agreement that the U.S. will be. I don't even like that word. We have compromised enough so we can make situations better. So that's for a good, positive thought. Positive and in our favor, because everything has been done to either nullify, take away, or just totally ignore it.
But we have to go. We really have to, and this applies particularly with the U.S. We really have to go beyond the mentality of the 566 tribes that are federally recognized.
There's more tribes
because there are over 450 tribes that are not recognized by the government. Now, I have to say that when I hear statements, and in this particular case by our president, saying that he respects the right of self-determination, and yet they are using 566 tribes as the example as to where things apply. And you have over 450 tribes, tribal nations, that have not been recognized. Are you really respecting the right of self-determination?
No.
You're defining who is and who is not. And I really think that people need to define themselves, understand that that is their right, and move forward. We need to make the system obsolete in that respect.
Okay. We're going to take a break now. Our guest is pelli. She's TAINO. And we will be back right after our break.
Join us on Just Us Radio Network for our shows Inflowment, Unity in Community, Numbers in Time, the Indigenous Peoples Voice, One Point of View, Walking the Talk with Kurt, and the People's Round Table. Check out our website for information about upcoming shows. Just ask Google to find Just Us Radio Network, and you will find links to our website and to our Blog Talk and Facebook pages, as well as to our podcast, where you can subscribe for automatic downloads.
Osio Eli Kia ora. Welcome back to Lugi. We are here with our guest, a wonderful TAINO woman named pelli. Is it pronounced pelli or pelli?
Pelli.
Pelli, okay. And great show tonight, people. Before we go any further, I would like to give our call-in number, should we have anyone that would like to call in, and that's area code 718-506-1564. Again, that's area code 718-506-1564. If you are listening to the show via our website, there is a place that you can leave messages, or make comments, I should say, and our wonderful people behind the scenes will let us know what you're wanting to ask, and we will take your questions and try to answer them to the best of our ability there. I didn't get to, since you weren't at the beginning of the show, I'm going to just take the time out to acknowledge we have my little brother here, Cherokee Bennett in Oklahoma. He's Western Band Cherokee. We have Sheila Folger. She's in North Carolina, and she's the one who got us doing all this. She's our producer. And the other guest here is my cousin, Tsalagi, which means two dogs in our language, and he's out in Kentucky.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So, where did we leave off?
Oh.
Or what would you like to bring up that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I think that one of the things that are happening, and again, it has to do with issues that are not only impacting Indigenous peoples, but we have to be very aware. Many times we hear Indigenous people speaking about their spirituality. I'm not going to protest that because, I'd rather concentrate my energy on my spirituality and preserving our customs and traditions and reviving language, which is not particular to one particular nation, but right now many nations throughout the entire world are struggling and trying to revitalize their language. So do not be fooled by anybody that says if you don't speak the language, you're no longer a tribal nation, which many of us have listened to. But I think it's key that we also understand that being indigenous also has to do with protecting our Mother Earth. And earlier you were speaking about the fracking briefly. And I want to share something that I saw, or it was an image that I had as I listened to this conversation. And I've used that example to others because it was so clear to me at that moment. Fracking. I was at the Global Caucus last year here at the United Nations, and I started hearing people, well, they're fracking in Australia, and well, they're fracking in South America, and the other one, they're fracking in Canada. And all of a sudden I saw the globe, but I saw it like an egg. And then I picture that here they're puncturing that egg from different parts of the world in different directions, right? And what will happen to that egg? And although the egg will just not be an egg anymore, or be an egg in a different form, ready for scrambled egg, Mother Earth is just giving us an opportunity to do the right thing, she's always been the boss.
Oh,
and she's
always.
just being tolerant to what we're doing to her. You know, we as a society think that, you know, we have the power to fix everything. We have bought into the line that we are the masters of this earth that we walk on and every animal that lives in it. When in reality, the boss is Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're supposed to be careful and take care of what's there, protecting our mother just like our mother protects us. You know, it's that cycle,
exactly.
that continuous cycle that we see with water, with everything. And again, if you separate from the fact or from the issues that affect Mother Earth, oh, I don't have the time. I'd rather go to the movies than to go to that protest.
Exactly.
I'd rather do this than sign out a petition. You're really doing a service, not just to you or your family or your tribal nation, but to humanity itself. And we need to look, if we are the ones that have the vision, if we are the ones that received the gift and remembered the gift, because our brothers and sisters just forgot about what the mission was, what the task, what the mandate was. But since we have that vision and we see it clearly, we must act in every single aspect of what it is to protect and do what we needed to do and love this earth.
Along those lines, all of this fracking is our center to get one thing, the oil, because the United States government is one of the governments that seems to think that we can't have any other energy sources except petrol, which a lot of us view as the blood of our mother, the earth. And when she is drained of her blood, then she lives no longer. And it's even causing the shifts of the plates of the earth, because this blood is what keeps everything in its place. And in fact, we were teasing with Doreen and Carl from New Zealand that their plate is extending the back of the earth, and they said if this keeps up, there's going to be no more New Zealand.
Well, the same thing with our Boriking.
Yeah, you know, and you know that this information is not being put out there. Mass media puts up nonsensical stuff up on TV and the mass media to keep this kind of news from the people, because it's going to affect their income for these big corporations. And the government of the world are all corporate bought today. And if more people were given the news, I really think there would be a change. Nothing drastic like overnight, but people would start standing up, and I think it would stop. That's just my opinion. You know, like some of this, like where you've had whole countries stand up and go against governments within the last year or so. The outcome hasn't been too good after they stood up, but for something like this, I look at it as being a little different.
Well, you know, now that you touched on that subject, one of the things that we are addressing this year, particularly at the permanent forum, is the fact that militarization is something that is being utilized against the defenders of the earth. And these people are anybody that is standing up to say, you know, you cannot do this in my territory, or, you know, you cannot do this in this area, is being looked at as a terrorist or a criminal. And people have a right to defend life, because it's really what it is.
Look at the people being killed in South America, you know, in the rainforest
and
all that.
But it's not just that.
No.
It is happening, like, if you look at the statistics, what's happening is that many years ago, you would see perhaps one human rights or indigenous rights or environmental rights activist or advocate being killed. Now it's almost averaging to about 1 or 2 a week, and that is very serious. These are people that are standing up, in front of corporations, developers, and whatever. And it seems to be that the next step is there's not enough investigation to find out what's happening. And these cases happen to be more often in Central and South America, because the systems are different.
And there's actually
but not for 1 second. that in so-called developed countries doesn't happen. It does happen. There's different forms of persecution. And it just takes, to me, the voice of the people. This program is called Indigenous Peoples Voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we had more people voicing and saying, I don't expect every single human being to get up and drop their job or say to the kid, well, you go tomorrow without the homework because I need to do this. That is not what I expect from people. But if you cannot be the one out there doing, support the one that is doing.
Exactly. Last week, we had Joanne Spotted there. She is Lakota from Wounded Knee, and they're having the Million Man March. And she, just exactly what we're talking about. She says, "Mashu, are you going to be out there?" "No, I'm at the UN. I can't be there." And there's a lot of things that I can't go to. But my job, in order to help that, is that because I can't go, I talk about it on here. I post everything there is about it, because that's what I can do. I can spread the word to other people about things that are going on. I mean, I'm in a situation in my life right now where I'm taking care of my mother now. She's 90 years old and one of our elders. And I just can't pack up and go. I have to make arrangements for things. But I can fully support, and there's lots of people that can do that. Anything that's about anything Indigenous. And have you had a chance to look at my page at all today?
Not today. First of the forum, not today.
Well, Ty, what's the matter with you?
I have to get with the program.
I mean, I suppose you're going to use the excuse of meetings all day. Well, I don't buy that. No, but you're absolutely right. We can support each other. We can be a positive support for each other, and that's the main thing. And then out of that, we'll have the people that can get out and do that.
And that is key. I mean, right now, over 2,000 Indigenous delegates registered for this session. That's 2,000 people from the world, representing 370 million Indigenous people. But we know what needs to happen here. That is only a fraction. The United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues is not an Indigenous Peoples mechanism, and we need to make that very clear. It was not created by Indigenous peoples. It is a UN mechanism. What it allows us to do, though, is to bring forth issues that have to do with Indigenous peoples, and what we've seen is that persistence is the key here. It took over 20 years to get the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples supported. 20 years for this little document that has 46 articles. But you see persistence did it. In 1923 and 25, there was this call and understanding from Indigenous people here in North America that they were going to have this meeting with all nations, and a couple of chiefs here from North America went because, after all, they understood that they were a nation, a tribal nation. Most of us see ourselves as that. And there was denied access, and they tried year after year after year. And here we are celebrating now the 13th session on the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So persistence does pay. The system may be slow, but I think that the little grain of sand that we must bring forth to this mechanism must be brought forth. And once we get here, we continue doing the things that we must to make a difference for our lives. It's not that everything will be fixed by the government or the state, as they're called at the United Nations, but we need to do the part that corresponds us within the system. Whether we like the fact that we are part of that system or not is irrelevant, because truth of the matter is, they're running the show. But we need to make the difference in our personal lives, in our communities, and that will be key. When I speak about make the other system obsolete, we really concentrate on what we must do, then eventually something else, we will evoke change in that other system.
Something that's going to be good does take time.
Right.
And all of this stuff that has happened in the last 522 years isn't just going to change just like
exactly.
that.
It took that long
Right.
to be where we are right now.
But I found with our principle on anything, not just with what we're doing here, but with anything, we have a hard time seeing the long-term goal because our people want something to happen like quick. And it's very hard for our people as Indigenous people to keep this long-range goal and keep working towards it because we're not getting gratification. And this is something that we as a people have to learn. That anything good, you've got to work hard and get a good foundation. And that's the way it's going to work.
I think that one thing that we've heard from elders from different Indigenous nations, usually, we have that image of the grandfather or the grandmother speaking in a very calm voice. And, we're on this rush constantly. I think that we have been infested by other cultures and other elements, and it's really going back to basics, And I have a lot of hope. I see a lot of things that are horrible, but I really have a lot of hope, and I really think that maybe not in our time, but I really hope that by the time my granddaughter and my grandson, are adults, that they do see a difference in their lives, and it is our responsibility to do whatever is in our power, to build the blocks, to place the building blocks that will be the foundation of a different life for them.
And then when you take your journey, you know that you've done everything that you possibly can. And then, knowing you will be watching.
With my spear.
Spear. Yeah.
I'm known the warrior.
Hey,
I've earned my time.
However you can do it, but we'll take it. Yeah. But that's really good. That's really good. Do you have anything that you'd like to say?
I've just been listening to you, Ty. It's so lovely listening to your stories and that. And I've been sitting here thinking, because Aotearoa, our treaty was signed in 1840. So it's not that long ago when I listened to both of you. We haven't gone through everything you've gone through. And just in the 180 odd years that we've been strongly colonised, I guess. It really happened quite fast after signing the treaty.
The Treaty of Waitangi.
Treaty of Waitangi. And I look at us, I think, well, I guess we've sort of been able to pull ourselves out a little bit faster and again make a lot of in a short amount of time. One, because we're a small island, we're small in numbers, we've got one language that we can all understand, and we do tend to back each other. I look at the picture that used to have both. I think, how can we, just our little country, help to this, with our hand to help to this? Because, Machi, you've said time and time again that Little Island is big, and you've got all these different tribes.
With completely different cultures.
That's right. It's a little bit harder to bring people together, but there must be a way to do it, and I believe, Marsha and I being at the UN this year, it's just another step in our path to do what we're doing, try self-control.
I have got that problem solved. We've always wondered where we're going to get. I can get many people off the street just like that. My problem is getting knowledgeable Indigenous people, they're in traditions and know what they're talking about. Instead of, I will not pull people onto our show as guests that don't know what they're talking about or claim to be something that they're not, because I do not that type of person talking on our show about rights and stuff because they don't have the knowledge. So my problem here, as opposed to in New Zealand, was that we have a bit more country here. I can't be connected with every single tribe. Whereas in New Zealand, they know who's up there, because the country is so small. But I've got that problem solved. I have canceled all airlines. Everyone who is here at this forum will not be able to leave New York, including us, and we will have guests every Monday for a long time.
That's right.
Yes.
That's how I'm going to be staying here working.
Yes. We will let the government know later, like when they really come looking for us. Only thing we have to do is get in a big village move down to wherever we want to be, away from government offices. Yeah. We will be nomads. Yeah. And we'll maybe down around Oklahoma. We'll just blend in. Hear that, Jimmy? We're coming to your place.
All right.
Yeah, but
definitely.
But this I just wish we could keep on coming together all the time because there is such an energy here, and there's such. I mean, I looked at all these tribal people here today, and what's really funny, people, is that our indigenous humor is the same no matter where you go in this world, and it's. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, maybe people can joke and we get it, whereas if a person's not native, they go, what? And I was joking around with the Aborigine from Australia today, and with people from Russia, and with indigenous people from China, And then I met some Lakota here, I have Cree people here from Canada, and all of that, it's just the same humor, It's just like, okay, this is my world.
Well, I'll tell you a story.
Just don't start it once upon a time.
So yesterday I see the sister from Taiwan, and I know her daughter, or obviously here from different events and whatnot at the UN, and I asked her when you see your daughter, can you tell her that I said hello? Sure, whatever. She's coming on Wednesday, right? So I walk into the session, and I don't have the best eyesight in the world. Let me make that disclaimer. And all of a sudden, I see her. And I go immediately, and I hug my eyes, and, a kiss on one side, a kiss on the other. And she goes, when she sees my face, she says, I'm not Debbie. I'm Rosa. I'm Rose. And but I'm her sister, And I was like, and the girl hugged me so, she really embraced me. Like she was really glad to see me. But I was like, oh, hi, Debbie. And not looking at the face. I looked at her from a distance and just went and hugged her. And, she responded to that hug with the same love that her sister would have. And she said she's coming on Wednesday.
Well, at least you got the right family. And the right tribe. So 2 out of 3. That's really pretty good. I was telling them earlier that I met a man from Siberia, and he, on his card, he's president with his people or something like that, and he goes, me, Siberia, president, and I go, me, Ani Gaduwa, so that's the old way of saying our people. He just kind of looked at me, kind of funny, like, what's coming out of his mouth? And then I said, in English, Cherokee, and he goes, Cherokee, and he put his arms around me. I mean, my feet were this far off the ground, and it was just really funny, and I made a friend for life, and it was really good. It was really good. We've had a lot of things like that happen today,
Well, I will post online tonight, sometime tonight, all our photos, pictures we took, and mashu all day. It didn't matter where we took them, outside. He had people lining up wanting photos. It was just so unreal. All his cards are gone.
Yeah.
I'm a bad person.
I don't know, no, I just think it's that aura that we have. It just generates people.
One thing Doreen mentioned today, she says, I think you got that aura around you, Mashu. There's something about you, like there's this regal aura about you. And I'm going,
I was joking.
no, but tell him what happened. Everybody seems to bow to me when they leave it. I'm going, what's that about? It's really funny.
Well, what a try.
But I think a lot of it is tribal, and it's just respect. It's just respect. Yeah. I expected that more from the group from Taiwan, and a little bit that way. But like and then Aborigines wouldn't let me go because we had business to take care of, and then every time I tried to leave, they just kept holding on to the issue. I said, okay, I got to go. And they go, no, you can't get that. I'm going.
They were so great, those guys.
Really good people.
Yeah, this is the bonds that are formed here are just amazing.
And I have a
I
feeling.
can attest to that personally.
I have a feeling they're going to be lifelong.
Yes.
And a lot of places you go, people will give you your card, and you probably won't hear from those people again. But there's not that here. It's like these are people
and
you
you
will.
see the faces that they're happy to see.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's about relationships, and that is the key.
Yeah.
It's all about relationships.
Exactly. Does anybody, since we don't have any callers or anything coming in right now, is there anybody that on our cast with us here? Do any of you have any questions for Ty or us? Oh, so
I got a wife, so I had to. Yeah, I'm right here.
I said, is there anything that maybe you guys have any questions about, since we don't have any callers or any messages coming in?
Actually,
so there's like nations from indigenous nations from all over the world in New York right now, right?
Correct.
Are they having the same, pretty much the same issue as we do here on Turtle Island with all the the 500 nations here and more?
One would think that people from the other side of the world have different issues, but the reality of it is that it's almost like hearing an echo. Regardless of where they're coming from, you have land issues, you had, and when I'm talking about land, I'm talking about displacement and land rights.
Yes.
Disrespect of treaties. Well, they have issues with the water, with the fracking, with the mining, with their rights as individuals. Indigenous peoples, human rights violations, environmental issues, the takeover of land for profit. It's pretty much the same thing. It's happening all over, and it's amazing when people identify themselves and their countries, and when they speak about their story, it's really something that you already heard from somebody else. Women's issues is a big thing. We have many of us have seen what happened to the 234 Nigerian girls that were kidnapped, and unfortunately, here on this side of the world, they have not made us think about it as they would if one of the celebrities was doing something that they weren't supposed to do.
See, now, I have a different take on that. My heart goes out to any woman, and especially young women, who are kidnapped, who are stolen, who are taken. And yes, that's wrong, and my heart goes out to him. And then you had all of the celebrities come out and starting and stuff for these girls. It kind of made me in a mystical way. Thousands of women and children, indigenous, stolen, and usually on U.S. ships in Canada, sold into slaves, whatever. There's over 1,000 indigenous women. They're starting their investigation. Okay, we have a question. We are all trying to overcome colonization, but how do we overcome domestic violence?
I love that. I can go there because that is one of the things that I call one of my callings. Speaking about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just about Indigenous, my dear. Right now, one of the things that we see, unfortunately, not just in Indigenous communities, but it's pandemic, the domestic violence. And I think it starts with education. I haven't had been a survivor, because I will never call myself a victim of that person. Having been a survivor myself of domestic violence, I can say that education is key to our sons, because one of the elements that I was able to identify as I went through my own experience was the fact that a lot of the things that I was listening to were molded by the mother herself. I don't pretend to blame women for everything that happens, because an abuser is an abuser. But I think education from a very early age, for future generations, is the key. We need to teach our girls and our boys, because, that happens too. We need to teach them how to identify behaviors from an abusive person, so that when they get to the liking of the boys and the liking of the girls, anybody that already has these traits could really identify these things. It is pandemic. The psychological effect and the emotional effect is it's really entrapment. One of the things that I found that was very unfair from the systems that are established here in the United States was the fact that they have this stereotype that, this defenseless woman that thinks so little about herself and feels that she needs to depend on this person to survive. Well, that's not the case. And then when it happens to a businesswoman, as it happened to me, I had to hush it, because how could I be in charge of millions and millions of dollars and then let anybody know that this person was doing this to me? It trickled to my profession. I was concerned that, they would say, hey, if she cannot handle this situation, how are we going to have her in charge of millions of dollars? So I really think that we need to break the stereotypes, and I think that people need to speak. For the longest time, one of the things, and coming from a Latino culture, and that, in quotations, but coming from that type of culture, there's a lot of fun with the joke. Today that Peter hit Mary because she was being too loud, and everybody laughs. To me, it is not laughable. We need to stop things like that, because we're perpetuating. Or you have, I don't want to say anything, and I'm not going to call the police, because then they're going to get back together. No, you need to call the police. And if they don't want to talk to you, if they get back together, that's their problem. You did the right thing. And it is empowering the people. The people are the ones that have the ability to minimize it. Education, not, it shouldn't matter whether they speak to you or not. If they get back together, you need to report it. And we need laws where the woman is not the one that determines whether he stays in jail or not, because chances are he will convince her for her to change her mind or for her to lie, and that could cost her life. It should be the prosecutor, the one that has the right to say whether or not they have a case. that has been my experience, and I hope that I answered some of your questions.
Don't they have it? There is a domestic call, but they would the police have to cut them out automatically. They say that once the call has been made, I don't know if it's the state.
For example, in the state of Florida, if they get to your house, somebody's getting arrested.
Yes.
Somebody. So let's see who, unless she has a mark on herself, or it's very obvious that she's the one that was attacked, it's one thing. But if they're not sure, they may take the two of them. A lot of people are very afraid of that. But there are many states that still the victim is the one that to say whether there's prosecution or no, or say, she had to say, well, let him go. It wasn't that bad. And that is very dangerous. That could cost somebody.
Exactly.
I think it's equally as important as when the further our people reconnect with who we are and reconnect with spirit, that the closer we'll get to getting rid of this violence. Because we'll be releasing the oppressor from oppressing us.
Did you have a question too, Doug? Did we answer your question?
Yeah, matter of fact, yeah, you have. The thing I want to do is to honor your guests for coming to the to the UN in New York and speaking for her people. So I totally want to just honor her tonight and say, Skeet, thank you.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your words as well.
Well, Doreen, you know what we're looking forward to tomorrow? Are you, Ty?
Don't miss out on the side event on the protection of sacred sites.
Exactly.
Our organization, the United Confederation of Indigenous People, is one of the sponsors of that is all Indigenous people.
Just a little summary. I heard a bit of the
Will this help her?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
One of the main things that will be discussed is good governance. Obviously, it started today, and what happens in the process at the forum is we concentrate on particular issues. 1 year is new issues that they come up with on the agenda, and discuss, and the following year, for example, is redress of past sessions. So this year is a new issue year, and we're also discussing, and this is really important, so one of the things that is key is that Indigenous people look at what do we really want to see? What is the future that we want for the next 15 years? These things will be deciphered. And there's many teams and groups over at the UN identifying needs. One of those groups happens to be people. And the recommendations that we make right now include regarding water, rice, land, seeds, anything that has to do with sustainable development will be discussed. And Indigenous peoples have not been as proactive, and I'm talking about masses, not the ones that are coming here to the UN. I'm talking about the masses have not been as proactive as to saying, we want to see this. And this is the moment that we need to really, really hammer on those sustainable development goals and let our voices be heard, because they will not touch that subject for the next 15 years. So we need to have these things in place.
Okay, now we're talking about sustainable goals. Your definition of sustainable.
the UN had these development goals, and one of the criticisms we received was the fact that it did not take Indigenous peoples into account when they deciphered, or determined which they were going to have. So, having said that, now that we're looking at post-2015, they created different groups so that they could get a wholesome picture of voices on what it is that you need. You have churches, women, you have Indigenous peoples. So it is really important as Indigenous peoples that we connect and that we follow what's happening with the post-2015 development agenda and let your voice be heard. If you go through the internet and you look for sustainable development, United Nations, you will be able to get that and follow it. Many times they have live streams, other times they have this information on the documentation they're providing, and sometimes they make a call out to Indigenous people when we're talking about the major group of Indigenous people. It's key, and people are not realizing how important that is.
So, on that tomorrow, what else?
Well, they're continuing with item 3, I believe. They're discussing the UN declarations, particularly the Article 3, 6, and 46, related to good governance and the right of determination. So, we have statements, interventions are recommendations from this organization or competent region or caucuses, organizations, umbrella organizations, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and umbrella organizations. And you can have individual or and the likes go on a priority. So this is when people submit the recommendations to the forum, pretty much hoping that what you said was so impactful and so applicable to so many people that then the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues makes their own report and choose your recommendation so that they can present it to ECOSOC, okay, which is the Economic Social Council. And from there, go on to the final report.
It says that we're getting a lot of interference. Is that being corrected?
Yes, it's on and off.
Okay. We have a lot of side events happening every day for the next 2 weeks, and Carol and so what we're talking about, and have you? I'm wondering what the interference is on this there.
I think it's due to the bad connection that you all are having there in New York that's causing the issue.
Oh, great. We have one of the best guests we ever had in the internet. Isn't that just white feather luck? I was so excited to meet Ty last night because it was so funny listening to her talk that I'm going, oh my God, she sounds just exactly like me and how we talk. And she just keeps going and going, and she's so well versed on everything. And I said, we'll just let her go and let her know when the breaks are, because this girl's not together. But the thing is that she's educated, and she has been here before, here, and Indigenous historian, which is all the difference in the world.
I never knew that. Started on my own. The answer was getting more not logical. So you start, and I've been doing that Ever since 34 years.
You explained that so well last night, and I'm trying to think of exactly how you did it. You said when you were a little girl, there was you had a teacher or someone that said there are no more TAINO people, and you said you saw your ancestors, your mothers, your grandmothers, your grandfathers' faces. I'm going to let you take the story from there because it was such a good story.
Well, my great grandmother, although she had been by the tentacles of religion at that time, and who wasn't, and but my great grandmother was the one that said, insisted, don't forget you're Indian. Don't you ever forget you're Indian. So anyway, I the history of Puerto Rico, and this is talks about how art sings, and to me that was the first time that I had to be faced with questioning my own existence, because there I have the images of my great grandmother and her siblings and her siblings, and my grandmother and my mother, and this lady saying that we don't exist, and my great grandmother, even as a nickname, she called me India. So when I had an opportunity, I raised my hand and I said to the teacher, they didn't kill them all because my family is alive. We're Indian. And she was livid. She was irate. And she was like, well, no, they killed them all. And needless to say, who was lying to me? Was my history teacher lying to me? My white history teacher? Because a lot of people think that all Puerto Ricans happen to be brown-skinned, and that is not the case. As a matter of fact, it's all the opposite. More Cherokee people than you have. But that just stayed with me. And by 17 and a half, with many more questions now, I decided that I would look for my own answers. A lot of things were not said. A lot of words in the language, were too TAINO. How did it last this long? If they only existed for 4 years. I started, never intending to share with anybody. And like I said, 34 years later, here I am on Indigenous Peoples Voice. And at the United Nations.
Yeah. Still defining who we are. And that we're not dead. Usually what I do, we've got about 5 minutes left. We want the government trying to Rachel.
They're passing a law in Australia for it to be okay to be racist, and the Aboriginal people there are protesting against it.
Okay, that's government or a group of people controlling government that has something they want to get the more pressure to get rid of Aboriginal people.
Right.
Well, the thing is that when we have issues like that, one of the avenues, this is a very good mechanism, is CERD, C-E-R-D. That is the Commission for the Eradication of Racial Discrimination. And it sounds to me like that would be a particular case that needs to be presented to CERD.
I guess many non-original people there in Australia are protesting against it too, so that's a very good thing. Because racism is right no matter who says it is.
But in this particular case, it needs to be processed and use the proper channel. Because this group, CERD, is very, very effective when it comes to issues of this magnitude and this weight.
No, in any country, this is where the CERD is.
The CERD is for everybody, and
we only have a minute left. Do you have any closing thoughts for tonight's show, Ty?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation. I want to thank the listeners. And the one thing that I really want to stress, since it is my biggest purpose right now, please know your rights. Become familiar with the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous. Know your right of self-determination, and also demand the free, prior, and informed consent on anything that could impact your life.
Thank you. Very good. And we're going to be keeping in touch because I may have you come on our show again some other time.
It would be my pleasure.
Yes. Doreen, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'd just like to acknowledge Project Access, Tribal Link Foundation, because if it wasn't for them, Marsha and I wouldn't be here.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I'd like to say thank you for being here. Thanks, guys, for being there to support us from the background and bringing your questions forward. Thanks to our people who wrote in on their comments. And we're looking forward to giving you more shows from here as long as we can. And I'd like to say, Sonoyo Style, Donadagaha, Yoganali, Eli Nahida, Donadagaha. That means good night.
That makes